I take my starter out of the fridge and I'm going to add a scoop of flour, probably a cup of flour, and some water to it to get it activated. And then I'm going to leave it on the counter. If you use lukewarm water, it'll start it quicker because it's very cold when it comes out the fridge. So I'm stirring it with the handle of a wooden spoon. I've put a cup of flour in there and a little bit of water until it looks like that. And then I'm going to raise this elastic band up the sides till it gets to the level of where it is, and so that's the level of the new dough. And then I'm going to wait for that to double before I use it. So my starter's sort of doubled. It's ready. I'm going to put three cups of flour in there and a big, about a tablespoon of salt. This salt, the pickling salt, is best. The corn use normal salt, doesn't have to be. You can use the finer stuff. And then about 1.5 cups of water, but it might be more than that. And I'm going to use it like a tepid water. One. Actually, I'm going to use 2 because I know I probably need that. And then I pour this starter into the cup. Like that. That's my starter. And then you get a metal spoon. Just push it around until it's all nicely mixed. Now you want it to look sort of like a shaggy dough, not too smooth, because then that means it's too wet, not too dry, something in between. So it's more or less taken up the flour. I'll put a tiny bit more water in. A lot of guesswork. I just want the right consistency. There you go. That took out up all the flour, but it's like shaggy. Do you see what I'm saying? Good. Wet my hand first, and then you just very casually stick that together a little bit more, like that. There. Now I'm going to put a lid on that. You could put a plastic lid on anything you like, but that's a nice lid. It's sort of sealed in there, and then we put that away for half an hour now, and come back to it in a minute. I have plenty of starter left, so I'm just going to put the lid on that, and then I'm going to pop that in the fridge, and I'll feed it next time before I use it. Okay, so I set it aside for 30 minutes. And you want it in like a 70-degree, nice warm kitchen. Otherwise you might want to leave it a lot longer. Wet your hand under the tap and then just lift and fold over. Lift, fold over. This is the stretch. Lift, fold over. Lift, fold over. And if it gets sticky, just wet your hand again. And then we're going to lift the corners. And that is done. Put the lid back on again, leave it for 30 minutes, come back and do it one more time in 30 minutes time. Okay, we're going to do the second stretch. So wet your hand and pull up from the bottom and fold over. Turn it around, pull up. It's almost like in quarters. You do first, opposites, and then just sort of like the pieces that we didn't do the first time round. We're just trying to form a ball. Now you'll see that this dough is starting to get quite smooth. That's why you don't want it too wet. So that was our second stretch. And then what we do is we put that away now for 2 hours in a warm spot. Just leave it in the kitchen there on the counter. And we're going to come back in 2 hours, and that's when we do another stretch and a bit of forming into whatever you're going to cook it into, bread or rolls. 2 hours is up, so next we're going to shape it now into whatever shapes we want. I'm going to do 2 different things. So I'm going to do bread in the bread bowl here, but I line it with parchment paper. And this one I'm going to do some bread rolls. Lightly flour, then tip your dough out. Whoops, that's way too much. Oh, wet your hand every time before you touch the dough, otherwise it really sticks. So I'm just going to let that come out onto the surface here. I want to do a small loaf and a large loaf, and some rolls I made, because there's only 2 of us. You'll probably make a big one for yourself. I'm going to cut it in half. Right. This special tool, but you don't have to have it, but it does help to get it off of the work surface. Right. So don't push into it too much, very lightly. I'm going to just cover it in flour. Okay, now I'm going to pull it out into like a V shape. I don't know if you can see that. And we're going to fold. So we fold into the centre, fold, fold, into the centre, and then bring up the ends, lightly flour it, and we're going to put that into our tray, and that we put aside now to prove. I'm just going to add a little bit of flour around the edges, even though we've got parchment paper there. Sometimes it helps it not to stick. So this way we can bake it in the tin that we prove it in, which saves a lot of bother. Put that on a side. And then to do the rolls, we just cut into smaller pieces, like so, and fold in to the centre, and pop it in the pan, and keep doing that. It doesn't matter if they're have them slightly apart, but by the time they rise or proof, they're going to be touching. I mean, that's okay because they sort of come apart anyway in the cooking. So I just make little rolls and always put the folded edges down. Got to be very light, not push too much, because you want to keep the air in there. So hardly push down on them at all. I'm going to chuck a little bit of flour around the edges of that, just to stop it sticking too much when it's rising. Now we've got to cover these. So I have the Dutch oven, it's easy. You just put the lid on. And then the other one, I'm going to put a little bit of muslin cloth over the top. Now this is going to go into the fridge tonight because it's too late to bake. And I'm going to leave it overnight. And in the morning, I'm going to bring them out, warm them up, and put them in the oven once they've risen. So they need to be almost double the size of what they are now. So you can either leave your bread now to prove, to rise, for 1.5 hours outside in room temperature, and then cook at the end of that. or put it in the fridge, leave it overnight, or whenever you're ready to bake it. It could be a couple of days later even, it doesn't really matter. But you bring it out and let it warm up in room temperature. Make sure it's risen before you cook it. Okay, my bread has risen. It's been out for, I took it out about 3-4 hours ago, and it's been sitting in room temperature. Both have risen. Now the rolls I leave as they are. They go straight into a hot oven. The bread, I'm just going to do a couple little snips with the scissors. That inside of the roasting pan. Stick the lid on and pop that in. Basically the same principle as 2 Dutch ovens. So my oven, I didn't set it really hot. I actually just turn it on when I put the bread in. In about 20 minutes I'll check it, see how it's getting on, and just judge it by how it looks. I set mine for 400, but I will turn that down at some point. Okay, bread's been in for about half an hour now at 400. I'm going to take the lid off and see. Oh yeah, so this is starting to brown a little bit, and it sounds hard, so I'm just going to put it back in. And there's the rolls, and they're actually not hard, they're soft. So the Dutch oven obviously holds the moisture better than the other one. So I'm going to turn the oven down. I turn my oven down to 350, and we're going to leave them in there for another 10 or 20 minutes, depending on how long they need, just to get a nice crust. The beauty of the parchment paper is everything just lifts straight out. No sticking. Yeah. Now your bread should sound hollow. Means it's cooked. There you go. All my cheese. So they've cooled for a little while. Well, these are really cool. That one isn't yet. And you'll see it's pretty good. This might be a bit pale actually. I could have cooked them a little longer, but they break away. And my bread is pretty close together. We don't have too bigger bubbles, but it's nice and soft. You shouldn't really cut it till it's really cooled down, because you'll lose some moisture. Now, I hope you enjoy making bread. Let me know how you get on.